No problem, no problem. I guess we can now start. So thank you everyone for joining in. And today's session is about content strategy, like how you can sell more than just words with content strategy. And today we have Megnani Pandey with us. Hi, Meg.
Thank you, Harshita. Hello. Hello, everyone.
How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. How about you? Thank you for inviting me here.
I'm good. I'm good. So let's start with a brief introduction of yours, and then I have some questions, so we can discuss upon them, and finally we can take up on the audience questions.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, do you want me to introduce myself?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm a content strategist who helps the disruptive SaaS businesses of the world, as I like to call it, with content and copy. I'm a content strategist first who writes content and copy rather than a content writer and a copywriter, which essentially means that when a client comes to me, so if it's for writing copy, I make sure that they have a well documented, unique selling proposition, customer avatar, and market analysis in place before we write even a single piece of content on paper. If the client comes to me for writing any piece of content, I make sure that there is a voice and tone guide in place before we go ahead writing any blogs or case studies for them. And that's essentially, what my skill is. I understand the business first. I understand which stage of business the client's product or software is in, and then give them, very feedback on what they should be going ahead with, and how they should exactly be strategizing content. And then I go ahead with writing content and copy. So that's what everyone can expect here. I'm going to talk about how that strategy is done and how you can charge for selling those strategies to your client, and not just exchange money for words, but also, sell your strategy and be a highly paid marketing consultant rather than just a content writer or a copywriter. My So I have been in the business for about 3.5, 4 years. It's just been 4 to 6 months. I've started making content or freelancing full time. Before this, I was a full time content manager at the Russian embassy, and I worked with a digital marketing agency. I was an SEO associate and content marketing consultant with a digital marketing agency called Startup Voyager, which worked with Fortune 500 companies like ClickUp and Time Doctor. And I have a lot of experience in SaaS from there. I didn't choose SaaS voluntarily. It so happened that the agency I worked with gave me just projects with SaaS companies, and plus my friend in college was building a software, so I got I accidentally got into the SaaS space, and now I just work with SaaS businesses. So yeah, that's essentially me, and I'm very excited to see what questions you guys have, and I'm excited to share whatever little I have learned so far.
Great. Thank you so much for the introduction. And now, before starting with the question, I just want to say that if anyone has any questions, they can keep putting them in the chat box. And if any doubts they have, we will be taking them accordingly. So, yes, they can keep putting the doubts in the chat box. So yes, the question I have is starting with a basic question, that what is the content strategy industry is all about, and what's the exact procedure you may follow while designing a content strategy for any company.
Sure. So every content writer, creator follows some sort of strategy or the other. They might not know it very methodically, but they do. Um, so uh, so think of it like this. There is a canvas and you have colors. That's how I like to explain it. So your canvas is your marketing. Your colors is, say, the content. You put the colors on the canvas to draw a picture. That's basically content marketing. Now, what colors you want to pick, and what is the shade that you should give your design or your picture, so that it attracts the right kind of audience, or attracts the kind of audience that you want, is basically strategy. So picking up those colors is strategy. Putting the colors on the canvas is content marketing, if that makes sense. Did that,
Definitely.
Harshita?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll explain a little more. So when a content strategist starts, so there's a difference between a content strategist and a content creator. A content creator is anyone who creates content. They might plan to monetize content at some point in future. A content writer or a copywriter, they just write content. It is generally aimed at something. Very often it's not very well documented, or they don't know how that content contributes to the larger customer, like the customer's journey, or how that content contributes to how the client is achieving an increase in business, or whatever their aim is with the content marketing efforts. A content strategist comes and they tell you that you need to have a business in place, and they try to understand the customer's journey before doing anything. So content strategy is basically planning of the content to create only those pieces that very strategically helps you achieve the aim that you want with your content marketing efforts. Optimizing the ROI in content marketing is everything content strategy. So did that explain things, Harshita? Or the others?
Yeah.
I can't see the chat box. I'll just open that so that I can see the questions as well. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that was about the content writing, content strategizing industry, right? So can you explain the procedure, like how the content strategists work and what all things they do and what's the exact procedure they follow?
Sure. So there are 5 components of content strategy. Depending on what stage the business is in, you have to see which pieces you have to use. The 5 different components are aim, substance, structure, workflow, and governance. Aim is basically what do you want to achieve from your content marketing efforts, like I said. And basically, every business out there, when I say business, it can be a product or a service that you're selling. So aim can be three big components, but it boils down to two. I'll explain what that is. So aim can be either you want to draw more traffic, or you want to convert that traffic into paying customers. I mean, the terminology varies. And the third thing is, you want to gain more authority and brand awareness, but that also comes under, you want to draw more traffic, because with brand awareness, you are essentially doing that. You getting more traffic. So aim can be two things. One is, you want to draw more traffic, and the second is you want to convert that traffic into paying customers. That is aim. Substance is what is the content that's going to go inside your content marketing. How is it going to breathe and feel like? Is it going to be funny? Is it going to be serious? How will it be received? And what is the content that's going to go inside your marketing? Okay. Structure is how your content will be formatted. So something like, you create a strategy of pillar post and topic cluster. That is the structure. You basically decide, seeing what channels you're going to leverage and how you're going to structure that content across different channels. So there's aim, there's substance, there's structure, then there is workflow. So how are you going to set up a system and process in place so that you can be consistent with your content marketing efforts. So if you are pushing out some piece of content, you have to, like, whether it's on social media or through blogs. With copy, that's not the case, because website is done once in a while. Emails can be repeated. So essentially setting up, deciding on the human resources, the tools and the procedures that are going to be needed to be consistent with the content marketing efforts. That's workflow. Governance is constantly auditing the content that you have to make sure that all your content is aligned to the current content marketing, whatever current marketing campaigns that you have running. So 5 different components: aim, substance, structure, workflow, and governance. If the client who comes to me is just starting out, there are some fundamentals that we need to get. So here we will require more of substance and aim. More of aim, substance, workflow, and governance will come later for a client who is just starting out, because now you essentially have to first test and see what content is working, and then you will go into making, then you can be sure as to what is working, and then set up a system and process where you can be consistent. So when a client comes to me, there are essentially two types. One, people may just be starting out, just right off the ground, or maybe they already have a product or a service that they are selling. So if the client is just starting out, there are three things that I do for them. One is making sure that they have a documented unique selling proposition. So exactly writing down what are the pain points that the product or the service like I mean what is the pain point of the target audience, and what is the pain point that that product or service solves. How is that product, that solution, and essentially how are they different from the competitors? So a well documented USP that will be circulated internally with all the people in the company, or whatever small team that they have, or something that they can keep in handy, and they know exactly that this is how we are positioning ourselves in the industry, and this is how the product will be described every time we are going to write something about it, so that we make sure that people don't have different interpretations of the same product or service. So having a very clearly written USP for people starting, just starting their product or service, one is you write a very clear USP. The second is you write a very clear customer profile. So understanding who your target audience is, what they do, what are their interests, where do they hang around, so what social media channels do they use, and how is their work lifestyle, and so that you understand how you can talk to them, how you can interrupt them with whatever they are doing, and present your solution as something that can overcome whatever challenge they have in their lives. So second is customer avatar profile. The third is market analysis. You essentially see what your competitors are doing, what is essentially their way of getting customers, and using that. So people who are just starting off, these three, I do these three things for them, and then I start creating content. For people who already have a product or a service that they are selling, I essentially try to see what's the customer journey and what is the block that they have that's not getting them to convert their cold prospects into paying customers. So what happens is when you're selling a product or a service, it's very difficult to convert people who don't know you at all, very cold prospects, into paying customers. And you can't just do that by sending them an email, or sending them an or showing them an ad which essentially directs them to a home page, and which is trying to sell you some product. There has to be the different stages. I mean, there are a lot of frameworks in place and different names for the same thing. So you create awareness, you create interest, you create desire, and you create action, at least those 4 stages again. So I essentially in the SaaS space call it a customer's journey, and you have to have as many touch points as possible, so that the customer, that the prospect is aware of your product, he or she knows a lot about it, and understands that that this product can really solve the problem, and other people have used that product or service, and it has helped them, and maybe it can help that prospect as well. So we essentially try to map out the customer journey and see if we can increase the touch points, or what is the block that we are having. There are different stages in the customer journey. What you do is you try to optimize each of those stages to make that cold prospect turn into a paying customer. I try to keep it 5 to 8 different touch points. And what I mean by touch points is, you have to show the cold prospect your product or service again and again. And how that's done very strategically. So I'll give you an example. So you run an ad, and just recently a client came to me, and they were running ads, and they were directing it to a website page, and that the website had everything that the client wanted to sell, and the product was $997, which is like I would say on the high, like a high ticket service that they are trying to sell, and you can't just direct ads to that page and expect them to convert. What we did was, the change that I made was, I send the ads to a landing page, which was essentially a freebie, something that the first part of the course that the client was selling. We essentially gave it for free in the landing page. The landing page had a lot of social proof, and essentially what the freebie is all about and what value it can give to the prospect. It didn't talk anything about what they were selling. Once the prospect opted in for with their email address, we send them a sequence of 12 emails. Each email was optimized again. So there is some. So on day zero, when they opted in for the email, they got the free thing that they asked for. The next day, we talked about what problem that they were facing. Day three, we talked about how our founders found that problem too, and how we discovered the solution to that product. Day four was how our mission became, to help people solve that challenge. And day five, day six, day seven, day eight was all about the different features that the different features of the service that they were selling, how it had helped other customers, and some case studies. And then on day 9th and day 10th, we essentially pitched them the product. So by then, and we had a different sequence for people who opened the email, and a different sequence for those who did not. So just by increasing that time period and creating that trust and believability. Before this, they were doing email campaigns, but what they were doing was they used to just send them an email describing all the things that they have in their service, how it had helped them, which was essentially not what the prospect wanted to hear. The first day, the second day, they don't want to be sold anything, or they don't want to know about a random product that they don't know anything about. So just creating that larger mission, which was different from the service and which related to the pain point that the customer was facing. And on day two and day three, just talking about what the pain point was and what was the solution to the problem before talking anything about the product made a lot of change. And I mean, this sounds theoretically, but really when you start doing it, you really see the magic. And on day 9, day 10 and day 11, if the customer would sign up for the service, and if they did not, we would again send them another set of campaign with a different set of freebies and a different set that they can consume, and we had social media and blogs and all of those things, and it really worked wonders. So yeah, those are the two ways. One is you start off with creating the unique selling proposition, the ideal customer profile, and the market analysis. And the second one is you essentially try to understand the customer journey, and that's and with 99% of my clients, that's the problem. They try to jump too quickly. Even with copywriting, this is the problem. When I see websites, what they essentially, or when I see sales pages, what they essentially do is they talk about the pain point and then they immediately jump to the product. They don't mention the solution and the pivot anywhere. And what I mean by that is you don't just talk about your product. You link it to what is the challenge that the target audience is facing. Then you present a solution which is product agnostic. You don't tell your product in the solution bit of it. You tell what is the solution, and then you tell the prospect, how your product is a part of that solution and can help them. Yeah, so just jumping directly from trying to sell them too quickly is the block most of the times, and that's what I help them solve with optimizing. Or like I said, you understand the customer journey, you try to optimize all the different phases, and yes, that's what you. That's essentially how strategy works. Now in SaaS, there are some frameworks again that I use for all the 5 different stages that we have. But for now, I think this, did everybody follow this? Did it make sense?
That was amazing, Reg. Like, I am the one who was taking notes for this, so I hope that everyone is taking same, because that's something we should know before starting writing content or making strategies, even for our own brand. So that's something very important.
Yes, and here I'll tell you. There's this company, I'll tell you the name. It's Social Kite. They reached out to me and they said, essentially, this is what we want you to do. This is it. And I asked them, are you sure that this is what you want me to do? And they said yes. And then I went through the whole thing, and they were selling such a high-end product with really no customer touch points and no taking in the time to create that trust and believability. And I just tell them, you're trying to sell such a high-end product. I mean, God bless you. I don't want to take such projects, because essentially what will happen at the end is, they'll say, okay, we got so much written, but it didn't deliver the ROI that we were expecting you to. And then that ruins my portfolio as well. So it's very important that you take the time out, you educate your client, and look at, so say, a client comes to you and it says, okay, I want a website copy written. And you tell them, okay, but what, we need to really see how we are going to position you in the market. We have to just wait for a while, see, create a proper documented USP, a customer avatar, and see some market analysis, do some market analysis to see what is the awareness stage your target audience is in, and then write the copy. Just imagine the kind of value addition that will bring to the table. Same with content. A client comes to you and says, I want you to write all these blogs. You can tell them, hey, we can't just go ahead writing the blog. Is there anything that you have documented on the voice and tone that I can see, that I can have a look at? And it's just about practice. Once you start doing all these things, I mean, it's a huge value addition. And I'm known, at least in the space. So I'll tell you, I have less than 5K followers on LinkedIn, maybe. I have around 1,200 followers on Instagram. I have not marketed myself at all. But 85% of the clients I've had so far are just through referrals, which is how I feel, good business is done. Because people who come to me once, they want to come back to me again and again. And I have full calendar months. I have a team of 12 people who work for me. And really, just understand the basics. You don't need to produce content every 3 minutes to get clients. You just have to provide value, and you have to believe and have that confidence, and essentially learn the skills also of how good strategy, good content marketing is done.
Oh, very well said, Meg. And relating to this, my next question was, why is learning content strategy is must in 2021?
Like I said, the competition out there is very stiff. You really have to understand how it's done. Otherwise, it's a waste of time and effort and money, right? For the client as well, because they so if they don't really understand how they're going to position themselves, and they just write copies, which sounds like almost every other copy, or every other copy that their competitor has, or every other copy that everyone in that industry has, then there's no point, right? You have to have those things in place. And like I said, I genuinely feel that all content writers and copywriters know some form of strategy or the other, and they do these things already. I know content writers who even in my team, when the girl just started, and she's again a very well-known freelancer. I'll not tell you the name right now, but yeah, when she started, she wanted to have a look at all the blogs that we were writing for Unbound B2B, one of our clients. And what she was asking me was the voice and tone guide. So everybody, will follow some sort of strategy or the other, whether they know it or not. It's just about having those things in mind, and then when the client comes to you, essentially talk them about these things and tell them, okay, I'll charge you not what every other freelancer is charging out there. I'll maybe charge a little bit more, because hey, look at the value addition that I'm doing, and I'm not just any other content writer or copywriter. I'm also bringing all this business skills and all these strategy skills to the table, right?
Right. So that's add to your value as a content strategist as well, because you're strategizing content and then you're creating the same. So that,
Right. Yeah.
right. Okay. So let's take some audience questions now. I can see many questions there in the chat box. Okay. How to become a SaaS content writer as well as a content strategist? Yeah, that was the first question by Souvik.
Yeah. So there are two questions there. How do you become a SaaS content writer? How do you become a content strategist? So all that I've learned so far, and I'll in fact, Harshita, remind me at the end. I'll tell you a very nice way of how you can justify your high prices as well as a freelancer. How do you get started in SaaS? You essentially, that read blogs from SaaS every day. And most importantly, go out and just take projects. That's how you learn in SaaS. In any space, I would say there are just one or two things which, as you practice, you go on to realize. So in SaaS, it's basically a software that you're trying to sell, and every software or any subscription model like will have certain features, and you just have to understand how you can talk about those features in terms of the benefits. And yeah, that's the whole game. The better you can do that, the better you'll be able to write copy and content. And how do you strategize content in the SaaS space? You have to, like, I understood strategy in SaaS by reading a lot of books, and I brought essentially all the strategy skills I had learned and all the SaaS stuff that I had learned together. So there is this guy called TK Kader. You can Google him. He's also on LinkedIn. You can go to my profile and you can see him in my connections as well. If you don't find the name, TK Kader, and he has a lot of YouTube videos. So that's a good place to start. You can binge watch all the videos. It's very very informative. He has all the information in place, and bring your content writing, copywriting skills, whatever you have, with whatever strategy he talks about in his videos. And he talks about something called the flywheel in SaaS, and you how you work about it. You can again, look at his YouTube videos and learn from there. Learn all this theory, but at the side also, take up projects in SaaS. So just reach out to people, tell them, hey, I'm just starting out and I've worked in so and so space. I'm interested in doing SaaS, and your product and your values really align with mine. And then can we just I mean, can I just write whatever you want? Can I just send you some samples, and I would love to work for you or something like that. So yes, that's how you can get started in SaaS. In content strategy, I mean, I have tried to people have asked me a lot as to what are the resources. There is no one resource that I can tell you. Strategy. I follow this guy called Jay Klaus. His podcasts are really good, and he will give you so every week he has some. Just give me a second. Somebody's at the door. Yeah. So every week he has one creative or the other on his podcast, and listen to the podcast. That's Creative Elements is the name of the podcast. Jay Klaus is the person, and he brings in a lot of other artists and creative people who are making money off their creative skills, and that's I feel insanely valuable. I listened to one of his podcasts from Brennan Dunn, and he has his own agency, W of Freelancing, and he helps freelancers understand how they can charge more, and what are the skills needed, and that was again very valuable. So there's really no one place. Keep looking for podcasts, keep looking for books, keep looking for resources. I told you a resource for content strategy. Jay Klaus, Creative Elements is the podcast. For SaaS, TK Kader, you can refer to his YouTube videos. I for content, Copyblogger is a good place. For copywriting, I am personally a student of Alex Kitoni. So yeah, those 4-5 resources. I mean, there's so much information out there. Don't be lost. Just to stick to one or two people or anybody who makes sense at with whatever stage you are at in your freelancing journey. Okay. Did that answer your question? Who asked that question? I hope it answered your question. Yeah, it's Jay Klaus.
Okay, so someone is asking if you can write down the resources.
Sure. Should I write it down right away?
If possible, then you can go ahead. Or
Sure.
else you can write at the last as well. Let me see. Okay, Shruti asks, please discuss a typical workday as a content strategist. That's the first question.
Okay, so it should be, I've written down the names, Harshita. It's not Kader, it's Kader. I hope spelled all of those people right. Yeah, I think so. Yes. How can you describe a typical day as a freelancer, right?
As a
As a
content
content strategist.
strategist.
Yeah. So that's going to vary depending on what stage of freelancing journey you are in. When I started out, when I had just quit my job at the embassy, I was like essentially doing everything myself. I used to take strategy sessions after 4 o'clock in the evening, and in the morning hours were reserved for just making those strategy pages and writing content. Um, and now what I do is in the morning I usually give everybody their tasks in my team, and in the morning now I have my strategy calls with whatever my client wants. And the afternoon time is reserved for all my social media work. The evening I reserve it to edit all the content and copy that my team members have written. And I reserve all my time after 6 in the evening to learn more things around content strategy, just stay updated with whatever is happening in the industry and things like that. So strategy in the morning, the afternoon for social media, evening time for editing and reviewing whatever my team has written, and after 6 p.m. it's essentially just learning more stuff, seeing what's happening around. Yeah, I don't know, not a very, it's a boring schedule actually, Shruti. So I would love to hear, how you guys do
How
it,
your weekend
and
looks like, Meg?
how my
Weekend looks like.
weekend looks like. So weekend so sad. Weekend is I plan what I want to do next week in my weekends, and right now I have a course coming up for people who are in their freelancing journey. So I was doing video shoots, and I essentially plan what I want to do next week. So if I want to, like, I'm planning to start doing some video on my social and things like that. So I plan and I hire people, or if I want to hire people, I want to review some resumes. So all the extra stuff that I could not complete in the week, I don't work on Sundays. I try my best not to work on Sundays, but somehow or the other, something or the other comes up very often. Otherwise, on the weekend, I like to talk to my mom and spend time with my sister. That's that.
That's great. Okay, so there is one more question by Shruti that does content strategist also tackle social media? Like the entire content of a business is seen by content strategists. Is that so?
Um, so content, even there are like a lot of interpretations of the word content strategy. What I just told you was like how I do it. Everybody has their own systems and processes in place, and I feel which is what separates you from the others. Your own whatever process that you have for your client. To answer the first bit, social media, yes. For me, it is. I look at the overall content for the clients that I work with. I don't think I've had any client so far who's just left everything on me to do. They usually have an internal team. Almost all the clients that I've worked so far, they have a content writer or a copywriter, and then they want to essentially bring in an expert either to advise them, or they want to outsource like the whole content bit of it. So that's there, but one way or the other, they'll have a marketing manager or a content strategist in house who's looking at things and is coordinating with me. It's yeah, that's how it works. And social media, yes, I a content strategist can do social media as part of uh, whatever other things that they are doing. I don't see organic social media as so much a part of content strategy as I see paid media as. So content strategy is like all about planning and strategizing, right? So a content strategist, I'll give you an example. So if you're running ads on Google and Instagram and Facebook, say, and this happens for like some particular spaces in SaaS. And if you've heard of Reddit is a very good social media platform like Quora, okay? And there are some spaces in Reddit, and you can run ads there. So one of my clients was running ads on Google and Facebook, and it was not giving them the ROI that they were looking for. And I looked at their social media profiles and I told them, hey, your competitors are all here. You essentially can't win. They have more money, they have more authority in the space. What you can do is you can run ads on Reddit and these particular groups. And nobody was running ads there. And oh my God, now they spend all their ad money and they've brought it down by 40%, and they spend all their money just running ads on Reddit, and it's insane ROI because nobody is running ads there. So essentially, as a content strategist, I would like to come in and tell them those things rather than write the social media content for them, if that made sense. Did that, Harshita? Shruti, did that?
That was an amazing example, Nick.
Yeah.
I hope that answered the question as well. Next question is, which all type of content does a content strategy include?
So it's essentially all pieces of content, but again, like I said, the starting is, can I get the ROI that I'm looking for from whatever content I'm pushing out, and can I optimize it to reach the target audience? So all pieces of content and copy come under content strategy. A content strategist can also be a content creator. A content creator might not be a content strategist. Okay, like when you are strategizing content, again, rather than writing, plan better. You try to. So rather than writing 6 blogs every week, you try to write just 2, and you make sure that both the 2 blogs that you are writing are optimized for SEO and something that is latent semantic indexing. Okay, so keywords don't work for blogs anymore. We have to go a bit more than that. So both the blogs are optimized for LSI optimized and SEO optimized. Plus, you make sure that both the blogs, if it in whatever speed that you have, there is going to be some newsletter or some channel that classifies what are the best blogs of the week or something like that. So making sure that your blog, at least one of the 2 blogs, features in that newsletter, so that then it can reach to a larger audience and just create more brand awareness. So again, more about optimizing and getting the ROI from your content marketing rather than writing more content, because like who wants to there's already so much content out there. Why do you want to add to the chaos? So bring in a content strategist, write like churn out less content and make sure whatever content that you are producing or making out reaches the audience that you want to. Okay, and it's optimized to reach to that audience both organically and through other means.
That's amazing. I hope it answers the question. I have just one question left from my side, and then we can take up all the audience questions. So my question is, how to measure the ROI from your content marketing campaigns? Like how you explain the client that this will be the ROI that we are creating the content on. Yeah.
Right. So this took me a lot of time to figure out, and great question, Harshita. So everything is about numbers. And think of, even when you are sending out your samples to somebody, when you show them, okay, this is what I did for the client, this is exactly how much it got in sales, and this is what the client was able to earn from the awesome piece of content that I wrote. That's going to be amazing, right? Everybody would want to hire you then. But just to get those hard numbers, everything is like not tangible, especially with something like content and copy. You don't know directly how it's impacting the larger picture and whatever ROI that the business is getting from the content. And there are some metrics that I use, and I'll tell you that, and how I explain it to client is, again, I try to see what the client is looking to get. So like be very clear on the aim first thing, what they want more leads, they want more sales. It can be either of the 2 things, and if it's not, then you better fix the business first than go on producing content. So what do you want? Do you want more leads? Do you want more conversions? If it's more leads, then see, so say if it's more leads and you're writing a website copy, how do you know that that the client is getting more website copies? There are tools that can help you understand this. So just get to the basics of Google Analytics and understand metrics like dwell time. Dwell time is how much time that the prospect spends on the particular page or the website. And if I pitch some prospect that, hey, your website is essentially crappy and let me fix that for you, I will say that, how you can measure this is, you will see a direct impact on the dwell time. Okay, so the prospect is going to spend more time on the website. So that's one metric. And for conversions, I mean, it's pretty forward straight. It's very much straight. You can just ask them to, especially in SaaS, we do this. There is a form. When the client comes in for a demo, we ask them, who referred you here, and that's essentially how we know, whether it's through SEO or social media or whatever has worked, and that's how we got the results. And with other pieces of content, my clients like to see how much shares did it have and how much likes did it get, and stuff like that. And like I've been in the business for so long, I know how those things are manipulated as well. So very often I'm able to explain my clients, but yes, that's tough. So get to the basics of Google Analytics, get to understand how Hotjar and tools like those work. Maybe that's going to get you some metrics that you can have a look at. Be very clear on the aim and talk to the client as to how you can deliver the aim. So if it's getting more leads, exactly how you're going to produce quality content that's going to create that brand awareness, how it's going to get that engagement, and then bring the client further down the funnel and convert that cold prospect into a paying customer. I mean, this was not a very good answer, but even I have not figured out a well laid out process, Harshita, to be frank. Just to understand the basics of Google Analytics and how Google Analytics and Hotjar works, and maybe that's going to help.
Right. So have you encountered this question from the clients anyway? Like anytime they would ask that we are investing in the content strategy or the content that you are producing. So what, like how would we get the results for the same? Have you encountered that question from the client anytime?
No, I don't think so. Because so when a client comes to me, when I say, I'm very particular about the clients that I work with. Like I said, I'm very particular about what kind of portfolio I'm building. So I tell the clients that I work only with clients where I am sure I can deliver you the ROI that you are looking for. Because hey, you're going to pay me so much money, and then you have to then you should at the end of it feel that it added some value. Otherwise, what's the point? You will be disappointed. And I feel from there on, I set the expectations very clear. What I do is in the proposal itself, I tell them what's going to be the timeline, what is going to be the investment that they are going to make, and how the whole process is going to look like. So that settles a lot of things. And at the end of it, I ask the client, okay, okay, so did everything go well? Was it how it was expected? It did happen with the client that the client said, I would have liked things to be customized for me a little more. I was just consulting them for what kind of campaigns that they should be doing. And I do that a lot. So I essentially get paid to just sit every Saturday and Sunday and tell the client, okay, what they should be doing and what they should not be. I just review marketing campaigns. And yeah, that client did come to me and say, I would have liked if things were customized more for my end. And I'm usually able to handle those, and I can handle those objections with hey, I can, tell you everything customized to your end. You don't understand the principles of how things work. And the next time, you would have to hire me again because you don't understand how the whole procedure works, because I just told you what was fit for your business, and you like didn't understand the overarching principles of how that thing worked. Now that you know the basics, the fundamentals of how to apply the strategies, you can use it for any other campaign that you want in future. You don't need me anymore. I've empowered you with all the resources that I could. And if I failed somewhere there, then you please let me know. I'm very happy to do stuff again for you. And then they were like, oh yeah, we see the point. We are so sorry. And I have been able to handle objections, and I understand the principles and basics myself very well, and I explain the client, okay, how my approach is so much better than what you've been doing so far, and that essentially gets the client satisfied. And then, like I said, I just follow the process that I've laid out in the proposal, and at the end of it, I that's how I manage expectations also. And at the end of it, the client gets exactly what was written in the proposal. And if it's not, then we go back to the drawing board and see what went wrong. And so far, it's been good. I mean, was that helpful, Harshita?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, someone asked that how do you decide whether you want to work with a particular client or not. So how can one I would like to reframe this question, that how can a beginner or an someone who are just starting out can decide that uh, which type of client they want to work with, and can they reject the client as well? Because this is the thing that I've seen in beginners, that they would accept every project that they that comes along their way. So how to actually manage and choose between the projects? I would like to hear from
Right.
you.
Yeah. So, Harshita, one advice. So, when you're just starting out, I would tell you that is like not the point where you can find quality clients, because okay, and there are two bits of what you're talking about, Harshita. I got the substance of what you were asking. So one is, you're just starting out, you don't have much experience. So I would say, at that point, don't try to see, okay, whether I want to work with the client or not, because you also have to come up to that experience level, right, where you can say no to a client. And that comes with hit and trials. You have to know a lot before you can sit back and say, I don't feel this project is right, and I don't would not like to take it up. So when you're starting out, it's all part of the process. Understanding what didn't work well or what clients you don't have to work with is also like a process that you go and learn through. So if you're just starting out, I would say, just see. There are prospects who come to me who don't have any LinkedIn profile, no picture, nothing, and they just turned out to be a very good agency, some employee at the agency who's just trying to help their marketing manager find a better consultant, a better marketing consultant, or a better strategist. So yeah, that has also happened. So when you're just starting out, maybe just see. I would say you have to be like confident and have that experience to also say no. And the second bit of it is, you have taken up some projects, you have some sort of experience, and you just taking projects after projects. Like, I mean, that's what maybe that Harshita meant with her question is. So at that point, I mean, it's you who have to do the work. Sit back and think, one good project is better than three crappy ones, because you also get to learn more. I like to work with clients who are open to doing A/B testing, and who, like, I mean, whenever there is no solid map, that I can give you, that okay, let's do this, and this is going to work out for sure. It's like a lot of trying out, and I'm very open to tell the client, okay, yeah, this is going to happen. We're going to test things. I don't know right now. We're just going to test. We're going to A/B test. I'm here with you all the way. We are going to work till you get whatever ROI you're looking for, or whatever you were expecting at the end of it. I don't know all things as well. So especially I've just started strategizing for paid ads also. So I tell the client, I'm very frank with where I am at my stage of learning, and that really helps. So you really, I mean, fake it till you make it has never worked for me, and I'm not so sure about people who propagate it. So yeah, be very frank about where you are at your journey, and talk openly to the client as to how you feel about things. Tell them that, okay, right now I'm not so sure about it, but from what I've seen, this has worked for my other clients. So how about we test it, and how about we do it? Not every client who comes to, I mean, when I say that I choose not to do certain projects, it's not about, I mean, the client or something like that. I mean, it's I'm not essentially saying that clients are bad. You have to also talk things out. You should not leave this seminar and this session and then be like, okay, this project does not feel well, that project does not feel well, so I'm not going to talk things out. First talk to the client and tell them why you think that this is not going to work out, or why you don't feel so sure about the project, and then let them propose a solution. They are also trying to figure things out, especially if they're just starting out. They don't know anything about working with a freelancer, working with a consultant, and how it looks like. So make them feel comfortable, talk things out. That's one thing. And second, if the client is really not does not trust your expertise, and is not willing to and tries to bargain for your prices, or do what, it's always better to let it go. And it takes a while. You have to just get used to it. You have to say, no, I will not take up the project. And that will happen only when you have a lot of options. If you're just struggling to make ends meet at the end, like at the end of every month or in every month, then that's not possible. So do efforts, like do the homework on your part, do more outreaches rather than just having inbound leads, because that way you can choose who you want to work with. When you'll have more options, you'll automatically know that, okay, that now is the place where I can start saying no, and just work things out, plan things for yourself, and how you're going to just work through this bit, and what projects you want to take up, what projects you want to leave. And essentially, again, it comes through experience. It comes through just knowing stuff. So when you can know when you can know when you can understand when you don't want to work with a client only when you've worked with some bad clients, or only when you know that the approach the client is taking is not going to work out. Right? So you first have to educate yourself on what works and what does not work, and then come to a position where you can tell the client, okay, this won't work, or this is now how it's done. If the client listens, very very good. You've essentially changed how the client thinks, and you've brought in a lot of value. If the client does not think and is too much stuck on their beliefs, then it's better to let it go rather than spoil your portfolio with something that did not work out. And at the end of it, such clients usually tend to blame you for not getting whatever results they were expecting. Okay, so again, something that will come with learning more and getting the skills, and yeah, just seeing things out.
Right.
Did that answer your question, Harshita?
Yeah, thank you so much for that answer. I hope it answered the question for someone who asked. Yeah, the next question is, how did you get your first SaaS client?
So I just told you, right? 85% or 90% of whatever clients I've had so far have come through my networks. So the first client that I had was when I was working at the Russian embassy. There was this lady who wanted me to write content for her, and yeah, it was just through a reference, and she wanted me to work, and I just started working with them, and it felt nice, just sitting back on the weekend doing something different from like the whole office schedule, just sitting back and working on that project, doing everything from scratch. It felt nice. And then the second client that I got was Shopify. And how I got it was, there was this job opening, and I'm sure a lot of people applied, and I did that too. I really wanted to work with the client. So what I did was I wrote an email saying, hey, I read your post, so and so. I really like what you're doing, and your so it was essentially a plugin. It's the most highly rated plugin in Shopify, currency converter. So what it does is, when you visit a Shopify store, say in US, it will show you the same INR price, Indian rupee price in dollars. When some client prospect visits from US, same for UK, Canada, like it's going to be different. The currency gets converted automatically when you use that plugin, and it's the most highly rated app in Shopify. And I told them about how I love the product, and what I felt was really nice about it, and how I was just looking for a chance to prove my worth and get into the company, how I was excited to learn and see how I could apply whatever I've learned so far for the product. And it was just a cold pitch, and I sent my sample. Plus I asked him to get on a call with me, and it happened. The product manager got on a call with me, and after that it was smooth because I told them about how to find the content gap in the industry, how essentially we could strategize. I had done a lot of homework before that, so I showed him all the strategy pages, and he was very happy with whatever I proposed. And we just went ahead with the project. The first was through network. Second was I did an outbound effort. Yeah.
Great. And next we have a question that how to price content marketing services. If you can throw some numbers which beginners can charge, it would be even more helpful. And then how can we customize our offers?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. Whoever asked that one, yeah. So how can you two bits of it? One, what to charge for your content marketing efforts, and the second is how can you map out your own process. So the second bit of it, mapping out your own process again. So for all the things that I've talked so far, where were you all this time, Shruti? That's so sweet. Yeah. So all through this while, whatever I've talked about it, what I'm essentially telling you is get the skill set. Everything else will come. You can make shit ton of money if you just know your shit. Okay, so just like I said, 6 to 9 every evening, I sit down and I just consume content, and not just social media content or random news. I sit down and I just and I read some books, and or I Google some things in my space. So I'll either read through a blog in Saster, or I will listen to some podcast, or I'll just skim through some YouTube video on content strategy. Everything that I've talked about, like I said, get the skill set, everything else will come. You can map out your processes again, only when you know a lot about what you're doing. So first, niche down, see what space is the best for you, see how you can, what are the things needed in that space, and essentially what's the customer journey that happens all through this while, how a cold prospect is converted into a paying customer. See what are the different elements, not just like, don't just be a content creator or a copywriter. Just see, how exactly that business is making money. Any business is going to pay you any amount of money as long as the business gets more money than whatever you are charging for, from whatever you've produced or whatever advice or whatever thing you've shared. Okay, so you can charge $2,000 as long as the business gets $20,000 from whatever you've done. And that will happen only when you know your space, you know how things are sold, and you know exactly how that business is going to make more money. And then even and when you know all these things, when you get on a call, you can tell the client, okay, this is how it's done, this is what you can do. Think about the value addition you can do when you know all this stuff. So mapping out your process will happen when you know more about your space. You understand not just how content and good copies are written in that space, and you don't just read about that stuff. You also see how that content and copies contributes to the larger picture of whatever, however, like the business is making money. So that's the second bit of it. The first bit, how can you charge for your content marketing efforts? So this is, I'll tie this to the thing that I wanted to tell you at the end. So how I charge for my services is, like I just mentioned, you can ask for any amount of money as long as the business makes more money than whatever you are asking for. Now, what I do is when a client comes to me, I anchor my prices not to what are the prices in the industry. I anchor my prices to the business outcome I can deliver. So if I write a website copy that is giving a client, say 10 leads, just give me a second. I'll just close my door. Sorry about that. Yeah. So you can, so if I'm writing a website copy that's going to give a client 10 paying customers, and all those 10 paying customers are going to pay the client say $100, then essentially it's 100 into 10. So it's what is 100 into 10,000. So a business for sure is going to make $1,000 every month from the website copy that I'm going to write, and that website copy is going to be there on the web is going to be there on that website, or 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 that website copy is going to stay with the business for about 6 months or about a year. So I can charge a minimum of 2,000 rupees, the amount of money that the business is going to make in 2 months for my website copy, because I'm delivering a business outcome of 1,000 into 12,000. So I can charge 2,000. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Then the client will definitely give me $2,000. And how am I able to charge $2,000 for my website copy as against $500 or $300 that other people are charging? It's because I've told the client that I'll work only with people where I'm sure I can deliver the ROI that you are asking me to. Right? So the client knows that I'm sure about what is the result I'm going to deliver as against any other writer out there. Plus, I've also told them that I'm not just going to write you a website copy. I'm also going to show you exactly how you can position yourself in the industry, what exactly your competitors are doing, what is their customer journey, and how your customer journey is different. Plus, it's optimized for everything that's working well for your competitor. I mean, see the value addition that I'm bringing to the table. They are very and I apply the same principles for my own business as I do for my clients. So every step of how I interact with a prospect is optimized. I know for sure that a cold prospect is going to come to me, and first they'll have all sorts of questions, and then I'll answer all their questions. In the second call, so in the first call, they'll get to know stuff. They'll get to hear stuff that nobody around told them. And I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. In the next call, I know that the client has done his own research. They've gone to other writers. They've seen what they are telling them, and they've seen what I have told them. Now, in the second call, the client is going to say, okay, we're convinced that you are the person we want to work with. Now tell us what's going to be the price and how the process is going to look like. And I'm going to say, okay, just give me a while. I'm going to have a look at it, and I'm going to create a proposal. And then, I document the whole proposal and I send it to them, which is, 2 or 3 times what the client expected maybe, or what others are charging. And then they're going to go into that thinking mode again. Okay, should I get this person on board or not? And the third time they come to me, what I tell them is, so the price I tell them in the second call is usually higher than what I have in mind that I'm going to charge them. In the third call, I tell them, okay, so essentially in the third call, they will be asking me to bring down the prices. And I'm not going to, and I'm going to, say, okay, I'll think about it and I'll let you know by the end of the day. At the end of the day, what I essentially do is, I tell them, hey, okay, I believe in whatever product you are selling, and okay, I'll take up the project. And what I'll do is I'm going to give them 24 hours just to accept the project at maybe 3,000 or 4,000 less than the price that I was saying, and create that scarcity. And if they make one-time payments, I'll bring down the price by 5,000 or 6,000, which is also fine. And that's how it works. And I close the client, because creating that scarcity is very important. And even when I send the second proposal, I tell them that, revert back to me by so and so time. And how you can charge your price is essentially, again, when you understand how the whole thing, how the whole customer journey works in your space, you will know exactly what is the business outcome you are delivering, or what you are doing contributes to the larger picture. And then, anchor your prices to the business outcome that you are delivering rather than what others are charging. Don't commoditize what you are, whatever services that you have. Then what will happen is, even if the client rejects whatever process you put out, they've not rejected you. You become different from whatever you're selling. I've seen with a lot of freelancers, when people reject them, they essentially say, okay, we might, it's a bad thing. And when you have laid out process, and when you propose something and the client rejects it, that the process has not worked out. It's not you, it's nothing about your services. Your samples are fine and dandy. your everything is fine and dandy. They just didn't like the process, maybe, or it was not the right fit. And that's how you essentially that's how I work around things. Don't commoditize. Plus, one more thing, when you're making out the proposal, if you feel that the client is really the client who cannot pay you whatever you're charging, send them three different packages, and in each of them, send a different project scope. In the first one, keep just the essentials. In the second one, again, keep the essentials plus a few additional things. And then in the third one, keep the additional things, keep the basics, like keep the most important ones, and then give some extra value as well. And usually it's said that people will opt for the second one, but I've seen clients who came to me with maybe 25,000 for a website copy, and they ended up opting for the 1,20,000 package because they wanted all of the services that I was offering. And I have clients also who come to me again and again, and every time they are sending me a new project, they'll write at the end, please charge me a price that will not make me fall off the chair. And and I tell them, okay, hey, hey, if you already know what I'm going to ask you for, and but I know, but hey, you come back to me again and again, and they tell me, that yeah, we could not find a better writer, we could not find the inputs that you give with any other writer or copywriter out there. So yes, and even when you are presenting the three packages that you are, make sure that the client feels comfortable with all of the three packages. That's why I said, keep the essentials in all the packages. The client should not feel that they are missing out on something. That's very important. And then what will happen is you are asking the client to choose from your packages rather than comparing your packages or your prices to any other writer and their prices that are out there. And plus, like I said, anchor your prices to the business outcome that you are delivering rather than commoditizing whatever service that you have. And that's going to be like huge. Just test it out for about a month and then come back to me if it doesn't work out. Like, was that okay? Did you guys follow that?
Yeah, I hope that helps. And that was a detailed answer. Thank you so much for that, Nick. And now let's take one last question. Debrina asked, can you suggest some books related to content marketing which helped you?
And she's also asked, ROI can be guaranteed that way. So Deblina, like nothing. So again, understand how systems and processes work in your industry. In SaaS, there is a flywheel and there are different stages. So there a customer comes to you and there is acquisition, then there is activation, then there is retention, there is revenue, and then there is referral. So I've understood all the 5 different stages that happen in SaaS, and I see the larger picture and see, again, how my services will contribute and how are the other bits of it working in the company. And it's not going to happen that you can't. So if you're just writing a website copy, you can't expect and that's like awesome. The website copy is really well written, it has all the things in it, but say the email campaign that the client is running sucks or is written by some other writer, then you can't do anything about it. Then you can't even get the client the conversions they are looking for, because hey, you wrote a website copy, but they are sending the leads that they have through that website copy to an email campaign, and that email campaign is not very well optimized or written, then you don't have control over the process. So you can't guarantee that. So see, again, how the whole picture looks like, how the company is running the whole state of affairs, and then promise anything. And it's very important that you set the expectations clear from the start. Like, whether you can guarantee or not, again, it will come from experience. First understand these metrics, and with time you'll be able to guarantee certain things and not guarantee. I mean, and there will be times when you would feel that, okay, it's better not to promise the client these things, and tell the client that, hey, I've done so and so things for so and so client in the past, and it has worked really well for them. I see no reason why it will not work for you. And that's maybe how you can navigate that question of what is the ROI that you'll be bringing to the table. Can you suggest some books related to content marketing which helped you? So the Content Tilt by Joe Pulizzi is a really nice book that you can look at. uh, I can suggest a lot of content marketing books in the SaaS space. Generally, I don't have particular recommendations except for this book that I just talked about. You can follow the Content Marketing Institute. Joe Pulizzi is the founder of that, and they will give you like a lot of content which even you cannot find in books. And yeah, that's that. Content Marketing Institute. Follow them on Twitter. Follow their YouTube channel, and they have some pretty good blogs as well. So you can read that. For SaaS space, Crossing the Chasm is the best book on content marketing so far. Crossing the Chasm. That's the name of the book. So I hope that was enough. Like I really wish I could suggest better books for content marketing particularly, but no, I don't think other than Joe Pulizzi and anyone is coming to mind.
Write the name of the book, please.
Sure, Harshita, I'll write the name of the book. It's
I guess with this we can end with the session. It is like an amazing session, Rick. Thank you so much for your time, and the strategies you have told, the examples you have told, all are just amazing, and it helped a lot me personally and also the audience here. So thank you so much for the session.
Yeah, thank you so much, Harshita, for having you here. Your audience is amazing, and it was really, the questions were also very nice. I hope that the session was helpful. Do connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to answer any other questions that you guys have. Just DM me on LinkedIn. I am on Twitter and Instagram as well, but LinkedIn particularly. So yeah, that's that. I hope I'll get to connect with you guys outside the session as well. And yeah, I hope that was informative. Thank you so much, Harshita, again for having me here.
Thank you, Mrik. And if you want, you can put your LinkedIn ID here, so people interested may
Sure.
connect with you.
Yeah, I'll just give me a second. I've I've put my name here. You can just search for it, and yeah, I hope you'll be able to find me out. I'm a hard
That's a
person to
unique
miss.
name. You told me
Yeah,
once that's a unique name, so only one person you will find by this name.
yeah, that's there.
Yeah, so I guess with this we can end the session. That was a very good session. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much everyone for staying till the last, and hope this session was helpful. And yeah, we will be meeting in next session soon. Thank you, Mrik. Have a good night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, people. Thank you, Harshita. Bye bye, guys.
Bye.